Hey guys, oi gente! Welcome back to my channel, Todd's Thoughts. Thank you for stopping by and watching this video. Make sure you subscribe and hit the little bell to get a notification when I post a new video. As most of you probably already know, if you watched my last video or if you follow me on social media, that I moved to Brazil at the end of September. And I've been adjusting to this new culture, and let me tell you, culture shock is a very real thing. You've probably experienced culture shock at some point, even if you didn't know that you were. If you've ever visited another country while on vacation, or went to go visit a friend or family member in another state even, you have probably experienced culture shock to some level. People in different areas have different cultural values and generally behave differently than what we're used to in our home culture. For example, if you travel to China, you will realize that there is a very high power distance, which in short terms just means that there's a lot of respect for your higher-ups. And on the practical side of things, you will need to learn how to use a squatty potty. Another example is in Brazil, it's really a common greeting to, even if you've never met the person ever, you're meeting them for the first time, to give them a big hug and a kiss. With COVID, things have changed a little bit and we're back to the elbow tapping, but in general, people want to just embrace you even if they've never met you before. You can even see cultural differences between the city and the suburbs pretty much anywhere, or even between schools, all depending on the demographic that resides in that area. When you first enter another culture, you probably notice that you're really excited to get exploring and seeing the new sights and just experiencing all of the new things. But after some time, you start to see maybe the negative parts of the culture through your original cultural lens. And that can become really discouraging and disappointing and can make you feel like the place that you were once really excited about learning and experiencing is now the reason why you feel like you don't fit in anywhere. I usually experience this after about 2 weeks or so, and it can take a long time to accept where you are. It's a journey that requires grace upon grace upon grace for yourself and for others. There's a really helpful video that I found while I was researching this week. It was put out by the Global Society, and I'll link it in the description below. It talks about the stages of cultural adaptation and some of the symptoms of culture shock. And then they also give tips on how to go through the realization process and eventually the adaptation process, which means you're comfortable in your new culture and you don't experience as many setbacks as you used to when you first entered the new place. So today I want to share with you 5 things that I think are pretty important to consider when adapting to a new culture, whether it's just for a visit in a foreign country you've never been to before, or if you're actually moving. Maybe you're an exchange student and preparing to spend a few months abroad, or maybe you have to move for a job and you're headed to Europe for a few months, or maybe you're moving indefinitely to a new area. These are just some tips to consider when getting ready to travel. These are just a few of the things that came to mind when I was thinking about my experience here in Brazil. So I know I'm missing out on a lot of different things that are important, but these are just my top 5. So let's get started. The first thing on my list is kind of funny, but it can truly make or break your international experience, and that is the local food. I visited Brazil back in January, and people were so sweet. They wanted me to try everything all the time. And while that is very thoughtful, a lot of the food here is different than the food in America that I was used to. So my system wasn't quite ready for the shock of all of that new food, and you can imagine what happened. So when I arrived in Brazil this time, I remembered that experience and I wanted to be extra careful what I put in my body. So I tried things little by little in small amounts, and now a couple weeks later I can say that I haven't had many digestive problems and I'm overall pretty healthy. So I'm very thankful to have a good diet and no uncomfy experiences this time. And while I'm on the topic of food and helping your digestive system out, I would also say that water helps a lot too. make sure in your international travels that you are drinking lots and lots and lots of water. It's super easy to get dehydrated and sick, and that is not what you want. In your first experience abroad or in a new place, you want to make sure you're as comfortable as possible and you don't need to go to the doctor. And make sure you're drinking clean, filtered water. A lot of times the water that comes out of the sink, the tap water, is not clean and it's not good for your system. Another practical thing to be aware of is the level of safety in the area that you're visiting. Here in Brazil, at least in the city, you should try to avoid being out late at night unless you're in a highly visible area with a lot of people. And on the very practical side of things here in Brazil, if you have a purse, make sure that it's towards the front of your body instead of swung around behind you, because that will make it nearly impossible for anyone to snatch it while you're walking or hanging out. Make sure you walk swiftly through the streets like you're on a mission, and always have at least one other person with you. Lastly, it's really important to know where the especially unsafe areas are in the city. In João Pessoa, there's a few streets around here that you just don't go down at night. So know where those are so that you can avoid any conflicts. I say all of these things not to scare you, but just to help you be aware of what's around you so that you can have the best possible travel experience. The third thing on my list is to be prepared for the weather. Think about the climate and how it's different from your normal climate. If you're going to a cold climate, bring lots of layers. If it's a dry climate, you might want to bring extra chapstick or lotion, moisturizer. I've even found that it's helpful to bring eye drops because sometimes my eyes get itchy in the dry weather. On the other hand, if you're going to a hot and humid climate like northeastern Brazil, you might want to bring lots of ponytails because if you're like me, my hair just goes poof in the humidity. And make sure you're prepared for the hot climates by having a good water bottle that you can use often and refill, that you have a high SPF sunscreen, and be aware that you might become more tired more quickly because the heat just wears you out. For me, I usually have to be careful about my blood sugar levels dropping, so I try to have a granola bar on hand whenever I'm out and about, just in case. I wanted to show you guys a couple of my favorite products so far here in Brazil and that are helping me kind of get adjusted to things. The first one is this awesome sunscreen by Neutrogena. It's called Beach Defense. Water and sun protection, it's 60 plus SPF. I'll link it in the description below. It's been really helpful and great for days at the beach. Another product that is really important, at least for me, is this insect repellent lotion. The mosquitoes really like me, but I really don't like them. So you can just put this on and the bugs will stay away from you. I really recommend it if you're traveling to somewhere that has bugs that your body isn't used to. My fourth tip is a little more relational than weather, safety, or food. It's all about social cues. Try to pick up on them as best you can, but remember to ask questions if you don't know what the heck is going on. Take notes of what you observe around you so that you can know how to react in certain situations. Maybe some things to consider are, do the people in the area use a fork and knife to eat, or do they eat with their hands? Is it better to ask your host for a cup of water, or should you get it yourself? Is it appropriate to take your shoes off when you enter a home, or should you keep them on? Are people more structured and scheduled, or more relaxed and leisurely? Observing these types of things and asking questions will help you adapt to a brand new culture and overcome culture shock. And this leads us to my final thought. It's important to learn the culture that you're moving to or visiting, but tip number 5 is that you can't forget what makes you you. You shouldn't feel like you have to give up your own culture in order to fit in. You can be respectful of another culture while still respecting your own. And it's okay to think that things are weird sometimes. You won't get used to things right away, believe me. Remember to respect that things are different, but don't lose who you are. Can you imagine how boring life would be if we were all the same at the same life experiences and had the same views on everything. I think God knew that when He made us in His image. He made each of us to have a different story that reflects His glory in a very unique way. Different people and different cultures really make life fun. So remember on your next trip abroad to be prepared for what you can be prepared for, but to have grace for yourself in the things that you don't know yet. Make sure to comment below what your favorite tip was, or if you have another tip to share with me and the rest of the viewers. We're all here to help each other out in this big story that God is writing for each of us. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Todd's Thoughts.